Hello there, dear friends, and welcome to September 1st, and welcome to a new Creating with Sketches video. This is a blog hop that I'm participating this year along with Cole Bing and some very talented scrapbookers, where we take some sketches or sketch inspiration from Creating with Sketches by Allison Davis of Scrapbook Generation, and we create a layout, our own layout based off of the inspiration. For this month, we are working with the double page sketch number 4. And I have to say, I knew this was coming. I was stumped when it came to this layout. It took me so long to put this together. I think it was a combination of my photos were not the same orientation as the sketch that I chose. And then the papers just didn't seem like they were working well together. I don't know. It was just a very challenging, let's put it that way. It's a very challenging layout. But I saw it through the end, thank goodness. But yeah, it was one of those things where most of the time when I create, I can see the end, right? Like I have a vision of what the final layout would look like. However, with this one, I couldn't see it. I was just kept on plugging along. Like I would move things around, like, okay, let's table that and let's move to the next. And then I would do that, and then I'd come back and it was like, no, let's table that. And it was just a lot of moving things around and a lot of like, I don't know if I like this. And yeah, anyways, you'll see my struggles here, because this is kind of a longer video than I am used to, but that's because I just stopped and go and stopped and go. Okay, so the first thing off the bat that I'm gonna say I had a difficulty with was that I wanted to pick, so I have a homemade scrapbook kit that I was using in August. And this one was, I believe, my third layout from that kit. And so I have specific papers that I really was working on. And I was trying to find the most subtle background piece that I could to put in that center, because that was what the sketch had, was a more like a lighter, but you can tell it's not the same color as the background. So I was looking for a pattern paper to go with that, and I used this checkered black paper. I should have used a different one. I don't know. I mean, it worked out at the end. Everything worked out, but it was a struggle. And so I put that on, and I needed a full 12 by 12 so that I could fit the 12 by 24. So I cut one side 5 inches and then another one 7. And then I was looking at it, and if you've been watching how I create, you know that my comfort zone is just that little strip of border around. It just feels like it contains the layout, and it's just more pleasing to the eye. And I did not want to cut any like big papers to just go with that, to go with the edges. And so I pulled out a cardstock that was not in my homemade kit. But I make my own rules when it comes to my homemade kit. Anyways, I pulled out a kind of mustardy, it's a combination between orange and yellow, and I cut out a 1/4 inch strips of that and then created my own border. And then the sketch also called for this kind of like overlapping weaving type situation on the left side. And so I picked out some papers from my kit, which I thought would look okay. And so I'm working with that right now, and then just trying to figure out how that weaving look is going to work. But I'm stumped, so I'm not going to even deal with that right now. I'm just going to start cutting papers, and then here I'm going to pull my photos. And the reason why I use the kind of orange yellow is because I can see that on some of the shirts from the wrestlers that I am documenting. So these are just team pictures of the wrestling team that both my big kids were part of. So when my oldest was a senior, my daughter was a freshman, they both decided that they were going to be, well, it was a given that my son was going to be part of the team because he's been a part of that team since he was a freshman. But my daughter decided she was going to be she was going to wrestle. She wanted to make history and be the first girl wrestler of the school to compete, and so she did it. And I was we were very proud of her. It was a very tough year, especially that this was school year 2021. So you could just imagine that was a very interesting, year for everybody because of COVID, but more so for athletes because a lot of the things that we were used to as far as athletics were all gone. So, but moving on, I was asked to take pictures of the team. You take every high school team has a group picture, and that's what they put in the yearbook. So I was asked to do that, and so I have these images with me because I took the pictures. And so I printed them off so that I can have them in my records and the memories for my children. So I have a couple of 4x6 and then all the rest are 3x4s. I will be trimming these 4x6 so I can fit them in the cardstock. Again, this is the leftover cardstock so I started it with the banner. I cut out some banners and then I also cut out the frames that went around the 3x4. And then now I'm creating the frames that will go with the 4x6. Now I also cut some 2¼ inch square pieces from the pattern papers that I am using so that I can make those arrow points, because that's basically what I am copying from option 9 is the arrow points. This is where... So you can see there's a lot of stopping here because I really couldn't see it. I couldn't see how this is all going to work. I didn't know how I'm going to all put it together. Part of it is I knew that I didn't need some papers over on that left side because it's going to be covered up with my photo blocks. So that was a given. But then once I put them on, I noticed that I needed a strip of the papers to go in on the top and the bottom. Now I'm showing you here because I kind of doctored the cardstock so that it will show a little bit of that orange in between the vertical photo gaps. And so I kind of just doctored it and like cut up a little piece of paper and then stuck it in there. So nobody will know that it wasn't a full sheet of orange cardstock. And then now I did ink up the edges. That was another thing. I felt like there were too many patterns and they were just competing against each other. So I decided to ink up the edges just to make them stand out against each other. And then the whole making sure that they line up was also an issue. This is not my favorite sketch. Again, I have nothing against Allison Davis and the sketch that she had created. I think it's good that we get challenged once in a while, but this is by far out of my comfort zone, and it was a struggle. I was in the struggle bus with this one. So I am trying to make this as level and as straight as I can. And then because I like eyeballing things, of course I didn't measure all this. So now I'm just like, okay, we gotta make sure that they are at least spaced enough against each other. And so I'm just kind of putting them together and making sure that they are. The good thing about the adhesive that I'm using, even though it's ATG, that I can, if I don't push it hard enough in the beginning, then I could move them around at least for the first 10 seconds. So sometimes I would do that as well. I don't know what I'm doing here, but I'm trying to figure out how everything is going to be spaced out. And so I am moving things around like what you see here. And I'm sorry that I'm going in and out of like focus there. But another thing that I struggled with here was the placement of everything else. My photos on the right side were not vertical like the sketch. Have it been vertical, I feel like I would be able to make it work. But again, I'm working with the photos that I have, and I think that's another reason why sketches, you can make your sketches on your you can make sketches your own, because if you have a different orientation of the photos, then of course yours would look different from the original sketch. And so I'm committing to these arrows. At this point, I really don't like them. Yeah, I'm just gonna say that. Like, I'm not loving the look. I just feel like they're blending and they're like overlapping each other, and I don't quite like that. And then the way I created my arrows, it just seems like they're not quite straight on the bottom. They're kind of at an angle. I don't know if you can tell that. I could tell it even now when I am doing the voiceover for this. I can tell that it's not quite the angle that I want, but it is what it is. I feel like I'm far into this layout. I'm just going to commit and, continue to plug along. But I didn't know how to overlap it. It would look pretty. I don't know. I was just not happy with how it's going. But all that being said, I feel like that is one of the things about scrapbooking, is that when you don't like a specific layout, you can just like make it and then you move on, right? It's not like a painting where you've committed like hours and hours to this one canvas and you got to make it the way you want it. With layouts, it's kind of a low hanging fruit as far as like creativity. You make it, and if you don't quite like it, you get to make another layout. So it's all good. All right, so moving on. The arrow points are glued, so that's going to stay there. And then now I'm working with this, the photos. Oh, but before that, let's add the connecting piece on the other side for these arrows. That is another thing that was on the sketch, was this connecting piece. And at first I was like, well, am I going to connect those top and bottoms? But I'm just like, no, I'm just going to do the ones in the middle. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm trying to glue those layouts, and I did overlap my layout pages a little bit, just so I can just eyeball the locations of these little, I don't know, maybe half-inch strips of paper, maybe not even half-inch, maybe just a quarter. Well, it's a little bit over a quarter, so maybe it's a third to a half an inch. And so that's what I'm doing there. I didn't even bother inking the edges on that. I was over it. And then for the landscape photos, I was thinking of course, cutting them out as just the mats. But then I noticed that there's a space in between. So I'm like, well, I don't know where to put my title. Maybe I'll put my title there. So I think that's what I'm going to do here. But before I move on to that, I'm also going to try to figure out, if I have my title there, where am I going to put my journaling? So that was another thing to consider. I am noticing that there's a lot of darks, colors on the pictures. So I was kind of opting for a white letter sticker for the title, and I like this one. This is actually one that I pulled out for this specific homemade kit, but it's just they don't have the letters that I wanted, and it wasn't big enough for the idea that I have. And so I have another sticker. It was more the dark one, and I did some MacGyvering for that so that I can spell wrestling team. And then I still wanted a white, so I pulled out these very old Creative Memories large stickers, and I mean large, and I doctored some of that up too so that I can spell out the word Rams. So that was fun. And then I also added some pen stitching to those points of those arrows. Now, I could have done stitching, I sure could have, but you know your girl. I don't do I don't do hand stitching. Maybe in another lifetime I would, but not at this moment. So I just did pen stitching with brown pen just to kind of, change it up a bit. And then I did type up my journaling with my Royal typewriter, cut that out in strips, and then added that to the bottom. And then I have these stars. They're just chipboard stars that I got from Joann's and the clearance section, because that's where I like to shop. And I'm going to add that, and then that's going to be my visual triangle. And this layout is done. Like, I'm going to call it done. Should I add any more? Of course, I should have added some more. But at this point, I've already invested I think close to 2 hours for this layout, and I was done. So here is the layout. Make sure that you check out all the other ladies' layouts, and make sure that you check out the inspiration there, because there's going to be a lot of great inspiration. This is just like your video of what not to do. Or when you're frustrated, you watch this and you can say, well, at least it wasn't like Grace's frustrations. Anyways, I will catch you guys in another video. Bye now.